Hi class, welcome to week 8 of the semester. Just one more lecture that I want to give you for this last week, and it ties in with one of your discussion questions as well, and that's sort of the long-running debate between virtue and continence. Virtue, as we've been talking about the last 2 weeks as we've looked at Aristotle, this is Aristotle's view that morality is tied to character traits and that we need to develop character traits, and those character traits are dispositions to act morally. For example, generosity, and you've seen this example before. If I have the virtue generosity, then I am disposed to act generously. When I find myself in a situation involving giving and spending, then I'm inclined to act generously. That's who I am. I don't really think about it. That's just what I do. If I'm a generous person, that's just what I do. And so acting morally is not a matter of debate, it's no dilemma. It's just that's what I do, that's who I am. As opposed to continence, now in Aristotle's view, continence is sometimes a necessary evil. We talked about this last week. If I'm not generous, but I understand what generosity is and I understand how the generous person acts, then even though I'm disposed to act stingily, I can make myself act generously. And I think last week I used the example of cowardice. If I'm a coward, but I understand what bravery is, I can use continence or self-control, and I can make myself act virtuously. So for Aristotle, the need for continence is something that goes away with practice. As one becomes virtuous, one doesn't need to be continent anymore. So if I practice generosity, I become generous, then I don't need to make myself act generously. I'll just be generous. That's just who I am. And so for Aristotle, there's nothing laudable, there's nothing praiseworthy about being continent. Instead, it's somewhat shameful. It's an unfortunate situation when I have to use self-control to make myself act morally. But remember that Kant painted a very different picture. Kant really celebrated the power of the human will to direct itself. And so, this notion of making myself act in a particular way, Kant really held that up to be celebrated. And on the other hand, he placed very little value on our dispositions or our inclinations to act, because he said, well, that motivation, that disposition is something external to the will. And remember, it's the good will that's the only thing that's good without qualification. And so Kant was suspicious of dispositions and motivations because they came from something other than the power of the will. And one of his examples, it is sort of this notion of kindness or beneficence. If I'm a kind person and I see someone in need, then I'm disposed to help him out. But Kant wonders how that's praiseworthy. That, anyone can help a friend. If you're inclined to help someone, that probably means that's someone you care about. Well, did you really do anything that's noteworthy? What's amazing for Kant is when I make myself help someone I don't like. That's when we really stand up and take note. Like, wow, look at that. There's someone, using this amazing power of the will to make himself do something that goes against his inclinations. He's doing the right thing, even though he doesn't want to. Isn't that, just remarkable? So Kant's view is somewhat different, paints a different picture. And the question that I think is really interesting for us to think about, and I hope you'll spend some time thinking about this week, is, who do we really see as the exemplar of moral action? Do we look for the moral hero, or do we look to the moral saint? Kant's view seems to say, the exemplar of moral action is the moral hero. Whereas Aristotle holds up what we might call the moral saint. The moral hero has this tremendous willpower. And irrespective of whatever inclinations or whatever desires she has, she does what's right. She makes herself perform the moral action, even though she might want to do otherwise. So she helps people in need, even if they're her enemies. Whereas, the moral saint doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about morality because she has the right character traits, and so she does what's right. Well, because that's what one does. That's who she is, and so morality is not really a matter of dilemma or debate. It's just that's how one acts. Can't imagine acting otherwise. It's what she wants to do. So a pretty interesting distinction in the history of ethics that I thought you might want to spend some time thinking about it. Let me know what thoughts you have.